I'm Christian, and this is Soul Divine Truth. This is a part 2 video of a 3-part series, Raw Unfiltered Truth of Awakening. If you haven't seen my first video, I will link that down below just in case you can check that out. There is a timeline to my story, so it would make sense to watch it in order, of course. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content that I share. A little bit about my channel and what I hope it to be. Of course, it will be about spirituality, but a lot of it is about personal growth and life advice. I kind of want to be a life coach in a way, and so my goal is to maybe be that for a lot of people, even just for one person, if I can help anybody just kind of understand the ebb and flow of life. I'll be talking a lot about awakening to all degrees. Whether or not you're spiritual, that doesn't really matter. I mean, I am, obviously, but it's okay if you're not. Take what resonates with you, and whatever doesn't, just kind of toss it aside. Anything that you do watch in my videos, kind of just take it all in, internalize it, see whatever does resonate with you. And either way, just try to allow yourself to let your walls down a little bit, open your mind, open your heart, and allow yourself to not feel any sort of judgment to what I'm saying. This is a safe place for everybody to learn, grow, understand, evolve, and that's exactly what I want my channel to be. So I guess we'll just get right into it. So I want to pick up kind of where I left off in my first video. This is a time in my life where I'm going to talk about in this video that was very dark and lonely and heavy, but it was a part of my life that was very significant to my growth. I feel like up until about 5 months ago, I think that was the most significant part of my growth. Not only spiritually, yes, but more so personally. There was a lot of karmic lessons involved that year that I had to go through. It was a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs, and a lot of heartache, a lot of kind of anxiety and darkness. But aside from that, though, I came out of it with a very deep and profound understanding of, like I talked about in the first video, how to integrate the light and the dark, the good and the bad of my life. And that's really ultimately what I want to share with everybody is how to evolve your mindset and to not only focus so much on, the negative things that happen in your life. It's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day ebb and flow of life. It's really easy to get caught up in the stress of life, but there's a time when we have to sort of remind ourselves of what to be grateful for, what to be humble for, and I really want to share with everyone kind of how to get into the habit of doing that, being more humble, being more grateful, knowing that every single low has a meaning. There's a very significant meaning to every high and to every low. There's a lesson involved. Like I stated in the first video, I'll say it again. With the darkness comes the lessons, and with the light comes the healing. You can't have one without the other. It creates balance. We need a balance. And so, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. And in this year, there was a lot of that learning and growing. But the one thing that I remember the most is loneliness. And I think anybody who either has gone through a spiritual awakening or is going through a spiritual awakening, whatever phase that you're in, I think anyone can agree with me that it is extremely lonely, because all of a sudden, you're on this journey and you have all these really amazing experiences and awakenings, and you're kind of enlightened to new truths about stuff, and not just of the universe, but like everything in life. You start waking up to, personal things about you and your body, your connection to the universe, even in politics. I mean, I spend a lot of time like watching conspiracy theories. I mean, like literally I was waking up to a lot of stuff that I did not know otherwise. And so balance was really the biggest lesson that I learned that year, because like I was saying before, it was extremely lonely. At one point I had so many friends, a different friend to hang out with every day of the week. And then all of a sudden, within a year or two span, I had no friends to hang out with, or the couple of friends that I did have in my life looked at me like I was crazy because they didn't truly understand what I was going through. And it's not that they were, even though I'm going through this spiritual or personal evolution and they were not, it doesn't make me any better than them, and it doesn't make them any better than me. It just means that we're on two totally different paths. And that was really hard for me to accept. I tried so hard to sort of maintain my normal, mundane, day-to-day life, but also maintain my personal journey and my awakening and my evolution. And balance is key, because it almost felt like I was living a double life in a way, if that makes sense. I felt like, I would go to work and I would, hang out with these, one or two friends that I did have, or even see my family, but I couldn't actually connect with them on a deeper level because I was going through something so profound. And although I really wanted to talk about my experiences, I wanted to talk about what I was learning and all this new wisdom, but they didn't understand it. It was like speaking two completely different languages. And so that was really hard. And so eventually I just kind of shut out from the world, and being lonely, yeah, but the only thing that got me through it was finding peace in my solitude and learning how to embrace being alone and knowing that there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I spent a lot of time alone, but it was for the purpose of growth, and it was because, it was really hard to like knowing that I couldn't, or had such a hard time connecting with other people when, I'm a Leo sun and I'm a Leo rising. I love to connect with people. And also, like I said in the first video, I'm a Scorpio moon, so I connect with people on a very deep level. And when I can't connect with somebody, or if I'm feeling like I can't connect with anybody, I feel like a part of me is missing. And that was really hard for me to kind of adjust to that, to not having anybody to talk about this stuff with, to not have anybody to share any of these experiences with, so finding peace, knowing that this was temporary, just having faith that this was not going to last forever, that eventually there would be a reason for why all these people were shedding away and out of my life. And what I found out later is they were not serving my purpose or my highest good. There was a reason why they were not meant to be in my life anymore. And maybe, or maybe not, they would come into my life again, but at that time they were not necessary for my growth. And that was something that I had to learn. I was at an age where I felt like I should have been in a different place. I'm sure so many people can relate to this, but when you're younger, you have this idea of where you should be at a certain age. Like you graduate high school, you go to college, and you're supposed to know exactly what you want to do at 18 years old, and then you get this fancy degree, and then you find someone to fall in love with, you get married, you have kids, and that's your life. And although I do respect that so much, I respect the tradition of that, but for whatever reason, I just felt like that wasn't me. That type of life didn't suit me. And me being 26 at this time, I felt like I needed to be somewhere else. So that was weighing really heavy on me because, I was happy where I was working, but I just felt like I should be somewhere a little bit more. I felt like I should be further in life. So one of the hardest parts that I felt, I guess I felt like kind of like a failure. Like I wasn't, this isn't the only time in my life when I felt this low. There were so many, like I said before, so many highs and lows of my life. And throughout my 20s, there were times where I was way more advanced in, I made a lot more money, or, and then at this time I wasn't making as much money as I did before. But even every time I felt like I was getting somewhere in life, it just always seemed to come to some dramatic, intense, abrupt ending. And so when that happens to you so many times, and then now I'm 26 and I'm like, what can I be doing differently? What am I doing wrong? What can I change? And I didn't know what else I could do. So that was hard for me to accept, my failures and accept that. But the thing is about that, going back, I was sick of feeling that way. I knew that I needed to make changes. I didn't want to be a failure. I wanted to somehow leave my imprint on the world. I knew that I had some sort of purpose. I knew there was some sort of meaning to this awakening and evolution that I was experiencing, but I didn't know what that meaning was yet. I didn't know what exactly or where this was guiding me to, and I needed answers. I wanted to figure this out. I always knew in some way that I was meant to help people, but how can I help people if I'm not connecting with anybody? If I can't share this wisdom with people, how do I find those people to share with? How do I find people to connect with on a spiritual or personal level if they don't understand anything that I'm talking about? So it was hard. I mean, I didn't want to be a failure anymore, but the biggest lesson in that, I think, was admitting to myself of my failures, admitting to myself and submitting to these emotions that I had of feeling not good enough, feeling not worthy, feeling like I was, this is all I was ever going to be. No, I refused to allow that to be my life. I refused to be less than, and I needed to make a lot of changes. And eventually, when I finally surrendered to those feelings of not feeling good enough, I had no choice but to do everything the exact opposite than I've ever done it. Everything that I've ever known, I had to do it all differently. I had to completely reconfigure my entire life and everything that I was doing and my goals, everything. I needed to do it all differently because this was not it. This is not what my life was meant to be. And that was really hard to try to figure that out. And that's when I realized that was the reason why I was alone. That's the reason why these people were shutting out of my life, is because I needed to spend time alone to figure that out. The only time you can heal truly is to be alone. You need to allow yourself to, like I said, surrender to that pain and those emotions and the mistakes that you've made, and accept them, forgive yourself for them, and release, let go, and move on. The only time that you can find a solution to a problem is to admit the problem. And I needed to admit the problem. And my problem was that I was allowing myself to, I guess, embrace this failure, but it's different. Like I needed to now recognize that the things that weren't working for me in the past, there was still a purpose for that, but now it was time to move on. And I needed to close the book of that part of to that part of my life, and I needed to move on to bigger and better things. I needed to find a deeper meaning to all of what I was going through. I mean, it was to the point where I stopped wearing, I was reading a lot into, because it's more than just spiritual awakening. It's more than just personal evolution. There's a lifestyle change to this, to all of this also. And so, I started learning how to, I became more aware of ingredient lists, and I, like cleaning products, skincare products, hair care products, all of that. And then somehow I find out, about fluoridated water, and I was like losing my mind. I was so pissed and I was upset, and I was angry that we were forced to drink fluoridated water by the government. And then, so now I'm fearing drinking water, and I'm reading and also food. I felt like I couldn't even trust the food that I was buying from the grocery store. And I was afraid to put on makeup. I was living in fear of all the skincare products and everything. So it was like, now all of a sudden I'm afraid. So it was like, I was feeling like a failure. And then I learned to embrace that so I can find a solution and become a better person and do things differently so I can be the best version of myself. So as I'm attempting to make all these changes to be a better version of myself, and include with that, I have to change everything. Like I just said, all the products that I use, all the food that I eat, I needed to be healthier. I needed to live a more holistic lifestyle. And so, but how do you live a more holistic lifestyle if you're terrified to use anything that you have in your house, or eat anything that you get from the grocery store, or drink your own water? So then I realized, after learning all this new information, that to live in fear is no better than to live in ignorance. So now a problem, now what's the solution? How can I put into action the changes that I'm going to make. So from there, I started using all natural makeup. I learned how to make my own skincare products. I learned how to make my own hair care products. I did so much research and experimented. I almost got a second-degree burn on my face, once from not using quality products, but you know, you live and you learn, right? So anyways, I started buying only organic. I learned how to read ingredient labels on food. I knew what to buy, or I'm sorry, I knew what was good and what was not good. And in also skincare, makeup, hair care, all that, like I would read ingredient lists just to get ideas and see how I can make my own. And from there, I found essential oils, and then I started making my own household cleaning products and everything, just trying to live a much more clean, holistic lifestyle, because that's a part of it too. You're shedding all of the things that don't serve you, and that includes your body, because your body is a temple. So the things that do not serve your mental or emotional health, you also have to take into consideration what doesn't serve your body and your physical body. You know, you have to also keep that in mind as well. So that was another one of the changes that I had to make. So I'm trying to go through the process. I'm trying to be humble to the process. You know, it's easier said than done, but going through the motions, you know, I was trying to become healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, shedding all of those, just shedding everything that no longer serves me. I needed to release and let go and embrace this newer version of myself. Like I said before, I was sick of feeling like I was a failure. I wanted to be a better version of myself. I knew that these changes what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, I'm eating healthy, trying to have a healthier mindset, a healthier, better perspective on everything, trying to humble myself, you know, eating a slice of that humble pie, and what's the worst that could possibly happen? So, you know, I just, although it was difficult and it was challenging, but that's when I noticed a lot of significant change for the better. Once I finally, surrendered to the fact that I'm not perfect. I never was. No one ever will be. And I just kind of, I guess, surrendered to all of my past mistakes. And I understood that, you know, because the hardest part for me was accepting that I am not who I was in my past. I am the person who I am now, and I still have yet to become the person I am meant to be. You know, taking it day by day, minute by minute, and just kind of going through the process, trying to allow myself to trust the process and knowing that there is a better outcome in the end. Just letting go of all that, the mistakes, my down moments, everything that I had buried for the past 8 years prior to that, but also kind of my entire life, all the things that I had been hiding from, and just trying to let it all out. I just needed to let it go and release it all, and eventually that's kind of when I knew exactly what I needed to do. And once I started noticing the significant changes and that positive changes were happening because of this, I knew that I needed to somehow find a way to share this with people. I needed to somehow connect with people at some point when I felt ready. I needed to somehow connect and share my wisdom, share my experiences, share my growth, share my ups and my downs. And that was kind of when my idea, that seed in my mind, where I planted that seed in my mind of creating this YouTube channel. I knew that it would eventually happen. It just took a couple of years for me to, I don't want to say have the courage, because I do have courage. I guess I needed to wait for the right timing for me to have learned the lessons and to have a real story of growth, not just like the process of growth. I needed to have a real story where there was a beginning, a middle, and I don't want to say end. I mean, it never ends. You know, growth is not a destination. Growth and love, self-love, and evolution, awakening. That's not a destination. That's a lifelong process. It's a dedication to that lifelong process. Every day is something different, but I knew that there was going to be a time that would be a right moment for me, and I knew then, up until the day I created my first video, that I would know when the moment was right. I knew that there were some things that I still needed to learn, a few more lessons that I needed to learn before getting to that point. So I remember also, after that, some time had passed, and there was a psychic fair that was approaching, and it was a local psychic medium, clairvoyant. She is pretty well known. She has a pretty decent following, and my mom's birthday was also coming up. So I thought it would be really fun if my mom and I went to this event together. We both love that sort of thing, psychics and tarot cards and all that. She's also kind of interested in that as well as I am. So I thought it would just be a cool experience for us to go together. And so the day comes, we go, and I was so excited for this because I really just wanted to, I wanted to have an open mind and not have any expectations, but I was hoping that I could maybe have a chance to, because there was, I paid extra to have a group session, or be a part of this group session rather. And so I was hoping that maybe in that session, in this group setting, that maybe I would have it, or maybe not even then, but at some point have a chance to speak with the psychic who was, holding this entire event. And so, I was really excited. Maybe I would get some sort of information or whatever. I was just open to the experience. I just wanted to enjoy, and whatever happens, happens, So we get there, and I remember there's a bunch of tables set up, and there was people doing tarot cards in all different forms of divination. You could have a pendulum reading. People were doing like scrying, and there's gifts and whatnot. So my mom and I both had a tarot card reading done. And the one thing that at this reading was actually really amazing. And I remember the first card that was drawn was the Hermit card. And the guy who was doing the reading for me he told me this lovely story behind the figure and the meaning of the Hermit card. So, and what he shared with me was that, so the Hermit, the guy goes, he walks away from society. He goes off into the mountains, and he spends time alone with just him, and he connects with the divine. And in this process, he spends a lot of time just solely listening and absorbing all of the information that the universe had to share with him. And then eventually, after some time had passed, when he felt ready, then he goes back out into society, and he shares his wisdom, all that the universe had provided to him. So I felt like that card resonated with me so much. It couldn't have been more perfect, honestly. There were other cards that I got as well, but that was the most significant thing that I remember. I don't really remember the other cards. I just remember that because I connected with that so much. I felt like it had such meaning for the stage I was in my growth as well. So it was totally appropriate. And then after that, sometime there was that group session that we were about to go into. And it was very, very intense emotionally. And the psychic medium, she was absolutely just brilliant, profound. On point with every single person. And there was a part where passed on loved ones would come through for people in the crowd, and she would talk about these, whatever messages that needed to be shared. She would reciprocate that, and my father actually came through, and that was really, really cool. And after that, there's a lot of heavy emotions. I remember, so I lost my father when I was 13 years old, and that was really hard for me because my brother and I, my mom is literally a superwoman. And this is just a side note, so we'll just take a break for just a moment of the psychic readings. I feel like I want to share this. My mom is just such a superwoman. She is, I get emotional, God. But my mom, she just, she's the strongest woman I've ever met. She is just, literally, she's my hero. When my father died, my mom didn't have a college education. She, just worked, she had to work 3 jobs to keep a roof over our head. We didn't always have what we wanted, but we always had what we needed. We always had a good cooked meal every night. We had love. We had, security. We were always well provided for. And so anyways, but when my father died, it was really challenging because my brother and I, we were forced to grow up really young. And I feel like, I don't mean this in a bad way. What happened was meant to happen. But I feel like I missed out on some things, when I was younger, like being a kid, kind of. And also, too, like, because of being forced to grow up so young, just being put into that heavy emotional situation, I don't think, I never learned how to grieve. The only way I knew how to get out my emotion was to write. So I started writing my emotions, like poetry, or just my own version of poetry, I guess. They're like stories slash, they're like poetic, emotional stories. I don't know how to explain it, but, anyway, so I would write a lot, and I would connect with just me, pen and paper, and whatever I was feeling. And I remember one day showing my mom a poem, whatever I had written, this passage I had written, and she started crying, and she was like, "Do you really feel this way?" And it made me cry. But then I think it was her reaction, like almost like she was appalled that I felt this way. And so I think, and I don't know for sure, but this is, I guess I'm just thinking maybe this is where it came from. And because of her reaction to this heavy emotion, it's not that she was yelling at me, but I think she was just so confused because I had never expressed this deep, profound sadness to her. I never said that to her. Those words never came out of my mouth, but when she read it on paper, I think she was more confused than anything, kind of appalled that she had no idea, maybe. I don't know. And so since then, I felt like maybe I couldn't feel that way, that maybe I wasn't being strong by feeling sad. So I just continued to write and bury my emotions, and bury and bury and bury. And I would have these dreams all the time of my dad. And in my dreams, he would come to me, and I remember always being very emotional, I would be sobbing, just crying so hard, to my dad in this dream. And I would be begging him, like, please stay, like, you can just come back and we can be a family again. Like, I would do anything if you can just come back and be a part of our family so our family can be whole again. Please, Dad, please just come back. Please come back. And it would always be so sad. And I would wake up and I was actually sobbing in real life. So I was crying so hard in my dream that in real life, my physical body was actually crying also. And I remember years after the fact, my mom even said to me, I remember telling her this dream, and I'm talking like 10 years after the fact, I was still having these dreams. And I shared one with her one night, and she told me, this isn't healthy. You shouldn't still be having these dreams a decade later. You need to find a way to let go or to move on and find some sort of peace with this. But the thing is, though, in my waking life, I thought I did feel that way. I thought I did kind of overcome my father's death. I thought I did. But I guess my subconscious, it was so deep in my mind and within my heart that I didn't feel it physically, or in my waking life, it was just on the inside. But it was still having such an effect on me, that I was still having those dreams about him. And so that's when and my mom said to me, she said, I don't think you ever actually grieved. You need to find a way to just grieve and let it out. And then I saw, it took 13 years for my dad to, I remember seeing so many different psychics, so, you know, different types of medium experiences and every time I would be so hopeful and like expect my father to come through, but he never did. And that hurt me, and I was really upset and I remember asking my mom one time, you know, why doesn't he come through? And she said, it's probably because of how sad you are still, that you have not really grieved, and he probably doesn't want to make you upset. So then finally I'm at this art fair. I know I'm going off a little bit, but I just feel this story is, I don't know, I just felt like sharing it. So 13 years after my dad's death, a friend of mine and I go to it's like an art show slash psychic spiritual type of thing. I don't know. It was really cool, and we were just looking at all the different vendors, and there was this one table that caught our eye. He had these beautiful crystals that I just wanted to check them out, and then he offered a tarot card reading. And the type of reading that he did for us, he called it a gypsy something reading, and it involved all of the cards in this deck, and for every card, there was a meaning, and then for everything above and diagonal, side to side, below, whatever, all had a meaning. So it was kind of a lengthy reading, which was, I love readings like that. I love when they go deep, you know. And so he does my friend first, and then he does a reading for me. And he, before he does the actual reading, he was drawing cards to show as an example. And so he pulled a card down, and he was just kind of giving a brief explanation of like how this will go. And so he pulls the first card, and it's the image is of calla lilies, and I look at it and I'm like, that's, in my mind I'm thinking, that's weird, that's my dad's favorite flower. My oldest half sister, which was one of his 4 daughters that he had in a previous marriage before my mom, but my oldest sister is named Calla. And so that was my dad's favorite flower, like I said. And then he pulls a second card, and the image is of like birds or something. I just remember something with birds, and birds were my dad's favorite animal. He collected and built bird houses. He would feed the birds all the time. And I had like 2 different psychics in the past tell me that my dad comes to me in the form of birds. So in my mind, I'm making these connections with each of these cards that this guy is pulling. And then the third card is, it was like a wreath, but like of roses, and like a dove and a cross. It reminded me of a funeral. That's what it reminded me of. But I don't know the meaning to the card. That's just all, I made the connection. Those images reminded me of a funeral. And then the guy who's doing the reading, he like stops for a moment, and I remember him taking his glasses off, and he's kind of like in thought, and he's like, hold on just a second, just he's like, I just need a moment. And he's thinking, and he's like, did you lose someone close to, an older gentleman, I want to say a father? He had white hair. He's a funny guy. And then I'm like, and I just lost it. I just started crying so hard and I'm like, yeah, that's my dad. And he said he had glasses, and he wore this string around his neck to hold his glasses, because he said he always lost his glasses, and that was so true. And we always used to like make fun of that. And for the first time in 13 years, I waited 13 years for my dad to come through, and he finally came through. I mean, it meant the world to me. And that was the day I think I was finally able to. I cried forever. I just sobbed after the reading, not during or while we were together. It was after that initial like shock. I was crying in the moment, but it faded, and then we did the reading, and after the reading was over, I went into the bathroom, and I went outside, and I just like let it all out. And I think that was the day I finally was able to release it. And he said that your father wants you to know that that was him visiting you in all of those dreams you had about him. And he wants you to know that he made a choice. He chose to leave this dimension to be in another dimension because he's one of your spirit guides. He knew that he was able to do more for you on the other side than he could in this realm. So he's not gone. He's just not in this existence now. He's in another dimension watching over you. He's with you all the time. And that's exactly what I needed to hear. And from that point, I think that's when I was finally able to move on and just, you know, have peace with that whole situation. So anyways, back to what I was saying about the psychic fair with my mom. But I said that because there's a meaning to the. So in the psychic fair with my mom this time, my dad came through again, and he and I knew that she was right. There's no way she could have known this. She said he used to tuck you in like a taco, and he'd, you know, tuck the blankets in. You know, when my brother and I would go to bed, he did this all the time. And he would tuck us in so tight, like a burrito or something. We were so tight under the blankets, and I never wanted to move. I just wanted to be in that same space, like all cozy and tucked in, that he did for me. And then she said, he says, I hope you dance. And that was the song that my mom played for my brother and I at his funeral by Leanne Womack. I hope you dance. And it was a song that apparently my dad had dedicated or thought of my mom, my brother, and I. So it was like a dedication to us. So it was really beautiful. Oh, but anyways, after this whole thing, the psychic offered, she opened up for, to the, you know, to everyone there if we had any questions or whatever, wanted to say anything. Or so I raised my hand, and, you know, there were some other people she called upon first, and she finally got to me, and I said, so it's more of like, and I said, I'm really just looking for some sort of, I guess, validation or confirmation. I said that I'm on this, I've recently had a spiritual awakening, and I want to know, what more can I do? Is there anything more that I can do? How do I know, like, do I have a purpose in this? Like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm meant to be. I'm kind of lost. And and as I'm talking, she stops me. She's like, I'm going to stop you right there. I want you to know that you are on the right path. You are exactly where you need to be at this moment. And she said, she called me, this is the first time I ever heard this word. She said that I was a light worker, that I was an indigo child, if you know what that is. And she also said that I was extremely empathic, that I'm extremely sensitive to the energy of other people and like other things. And then also said that she said light worker, empath, indigo, and I think that's it. And then she said that and then she said I was meant to be a healer of some sort. And she said that you are extremely intuitive. You have too many emotional blocks that you need to remove, that you need to let down some walls, because she said that I have a divine gift that I am not yet aware of, but I will be in time. And she said, you have the power to heal. And she said that your soul came into this world with a mission. You have a mission, and you need to fulfill that mission in this lifetime. You need to get out there. You need to do the work. You need to spread you need to share your knowledge, spread your wisdom to people. You need to connect. You need to share. You have work to do in this lifetime, and you need to do it, but not yet. You have some learning. You still have some growing to do. But that is your purpose in this world. You need to make the world a better place. You're going to help elevate the vibration of this world. And I was just like, I didn't even know how to respond, because for one, it seemed intimidating, but two, it felt so right. I got the confirmation that I needed. That was the validation that I needed to know that what I was doing did have a purpose, that I had a purpose, you know. And once again, I finally felt a sense of purpose again, that purpose that I had lost within that year, you know, that I felt a sense of purpose when my spiritual awakening first began, within the first couple of months. But then, you know, like I said, when I had in my first video, I said I had that that tarot card reading, but then I got the Tower card, and my life just went up into flames. And she said that but yeah, anyway, so after that, after that tarot card reading in my life just kind of turned upside down, and like I said, the universe knocked the humble right into me and knocked me right off my high horse and was like, wake up. Spiritual awakening is not like, this part of the awakening is not meant to be blissful. It's meant to be kind of like gross and sad and heavy. And I went through the heavy. I was going through the heavy, and but now, so that sense of purpose I had, I kind of lost it, and I was kind of lost and confused through this time. And then hearing her say that I was a healer, and that she confirmed that I was an empath, she confirmed that I was a light worker and an indigo, that I had a mission here in this lifetime that my soul needed to complete in order to ascend. That was so meaningful just to have that. I got what I needed. And from there, I think everything changed from there. I had a purpose, and everything that I was doing had significant meaning. I knew that it would lead to something much bigger than where I was in that moment. I knew that everything that I was learning, all of my experiences, all of my growth would eventually lead to this, and that I could finally have a chance to serve my purpose, which is to share with people, and help evolve people's mindsets, just like what I said before, that I would eventually get to connect with like-minded people and help those who maybe aren't so sure of where they're going, or I hoped, and I kind of knew that eventually, me finding my truth and my purpose, that I could use my experience to help other people find their truth. So I think I'm going to end it there. So that's my story for today. I hope you guys enjoy, and I can't wait to share more of my story. Like I said, this is just a part 2, so that there will be one more part to this story, this part of my growth. I can't wait to share that. It'll be very soon, and I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I hope you all enjoy my channel, and I can't wait to connect with you again. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste.